Hello my loyal companions and welcome back to the channel. Now previously I put out 5 tips for beginners in Rogue Company to help you newer players learn the game a little bit better and avoid some of the obvious mistakes that I see newer players making. Well, in today's video I wanted to bump up the skill level ever so slightly and talk to you about 5 tips for advanced players within Rogue Company to help harness those skills a little bit more and have a better impact within your games. If you do go on to enjoy the video or find the tips useful, make sure you drop a like and subscribe. For now though, let's get into it. Now my first tip is something that you can do when you're not even in game, and this is going to help you massively at being a better player within the current meta of Rogue Company. And with weapon mastery being added, it adds a whole new flavor, and this is to know and understand the best rogues and the best weapons as well as the general meta of Rogue Company at the time. Whilst everything is viable, I do think it is best that you know what is strongest. For example, right now within Rogue Company, the K30 is one of the best weapons, and Kestrel and Switchblade are pretty much the 2 best rogues hand in hand. Knowing that means that you'll have a better idea of what is going to be important and have a good impact in your games. Now that's not to say that playing something else isn't going to be impactful, but it may just not be the best thing. If you're looking to do really well in Rogue Company, playing the best rogues, playing around the meta that currently is in the game, and using the best weapons is going to be the best idea. So it's probably a good idea you stay up to date with the channel to see newer tier lists, weapon reviews, and discussions about Rogue Company and the current state of its meta. Tip number 2 is something I talk about a lot when I talk about sniping, but is actually so important when you're talking about general gunplay within Rogue Company, and that is going to be focus on your crosshair placement. When I spectate players who I know are like not too bad, they're not new at the game, they're not beginners, but they're not quite exceeding the more advanced status in the game, a lot of it is to do with where they're placing their crosshair, and this has a few different forms. One is simply, as you're moving around the map, you want your crosshair to be somewhere that you are going to be able to aim in quickly and shoot somebody. So you're almost wanting to predict where you're expecting enemies to be. Rather than running around and looking at the floor where you're not going to be able to snap onto a target quickly, making sure your crosshair is facing somewhere that is going to be useful and you could quickly move to a target is going to be your best bet. Now with Rogue Company being a third-person shooter, you do often have your crosshair and your camera angle at slightly weird positions so you can peek around corners, but you want to be having in the back of your mind that you need to have your crosshair ready to snap onto a likely location an enemy is going to appear. This also kind of goes hand in hand with pre-aiming doors and pre-aiming corners so that you can shoot people before they peek. One of my favorite things to do on stream and just playing Rogue Company generally is bait out the timing that I expect someone to peek. I'll be sitting there pre-aiming a corner and I'll say 3, 2, 1 and they'll peek at the exact moment, and it just is a familiarity with the game. Knowing where they're going to peek, knowing where their head's going to be is also massively important so you can get that headshot time to kill as best as possible. So tip number 2 again is crosshair placement. Focus on where is your crosshair. Is your crosshair somewhere that if an enemy appears, you're ready to shoot them? Are you looking at the floor? Are you looking at the sky? Or are you looking somewhere where you're going to get a kill easily? That is tip number 2. Tip number 3 is one of my favorites for sure, and this is to use movement. Movement in Rogue Company is actually really interesting, and there's a lot that you can do with it, particularly around G-sliding and rolling in between cover and using your movement accurately and properly, strafing and running around in a way that makes you harder to hit for people, and using your crouch effectively as well. I actually do have a guide on tips for movement that if you want to go check out, I would recommend to go a little bit more detail into this point, but you need to improve your movement if you're looking to become a better player in Rogue Company. This is really important. Using G-slides especially is really vital and something that I don't see a lot of players doing, and if they did, they would really up the style of their game by having that more evasive movement mechanic within Rogue Company. So as you go through your games, make sure you're focusing on your movement, asking yourself the question, am I standing out in the open too much, or am I moving fluidly between these pieces of cover? Am I at a target, or am I evasive, which is exactly what you need to be if you want to survive the shortish time to kill of Rogue Company. Tip number 4 actually kind of goes hand in hand with movement, but it's even more advanced in that you need to learn to bait shots. Intel and understanding where your opponents are is one of the biggest things in a game like Demolition for you to understand if you want to be successful. Reading the map, reading the information, and knowing where your enemies are is vital. And if you're not playing someone like Dallas or Seeker who are Intel rogues, there are still a few ways that you can gather intel without putting your life at that much risk, and one of these is by baiting shots. Now, having fluid movement makes this a much safer journey, but the gist of it is that you want to be running out of cover and rolling back, or G-sliding out and G-sliding back into cover, so that you can bait shots from your opponents and force them to make a preemptive move and try and shoot you. You'll see me and other good players do this all the time, particularly jumping up on a box and immediately rolling off. This is something very common on Factory on the defensive side, and it just helps you know who is there. You jump up, you get a bit of intel, you get them to shoot at you, revealing their position, and you roll back nice and safely. Maybe you take a hit or two, but you should be able to survive that no problem. Kind of iffy when you're talking about snipers, but again, depending on how advanced your movement is, you can still bait out shots from snipers if you're confident you'll survive. But baiting out shots within Rogue Company is so important and something you need to get into the habit of. Again, it gives away your position, so if you're going for a more rat style play, sitting somewhere where they're not expecting you to be, don't do this. But if you're trying to gain intel for your team and yourself, this is definitely the way to do it. And then my final tip is actually something I preach all the time and I do a lot in my gameplay, and it's to be aggressive. Now listen, I like padded steps and I like Stalker and I like walking around behind people and shooting them in the back. I get called a rat for it all the time on stream, but the distinction between the way I play that playstyle and the way a lot of people play the rat playstyle is I move. I am constantly moving in aggressive positions, looking for opportunities to open up and make plays off of that positioning. I see lots of people sit and hide in corners waiting for someone to come past and shoot them, but once you get that kill, that's it. Your position's exposed, and if there's a teammate of theirs nearby, they're going to pick up on you and probably kill you. However, by moving aggressively, positionally, reading the map and reading your enemies, and making tactical decisions on your movement and positioning about that, that is the crux of being an aggressive player within Rogue Company. You do not want to be sitting waiting for the enemies to make a move. You can on defense, of course, you know, you're not the one who has to be aggressive, but that doesn't mean you can't be aggressive and make plays. Playmaking is what makes a Rogue Company player good. There's a lot that you can do in this game and a lot of times that you can break down the map and break down your enemy's movements to force 1v4s. Of course, mechanical skill in outplaying things is going to be massively important for this as well, but putting yourself in a position to make plays and be aggressive is something that's going to propel you into being a really good player. You guys know that I have 2 accounts, one of which is a solo queue ranked experience where I go through the entire rank system completely solo queue. And the reason I'm able to win these painful games, which most of the time are 1v4s, is because I move aggressively and I make plays and I bait my teammates and I know how to be aggressive. That aggression is something that I need you to be bringing into your games if you want to have a bigger impact. It doesn't mean running out and dying. Sometimes it does because it happens. You know, people expect your flank or people expect your movements, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be trying to do it anyway and making aggressive plays. So then guys, there's going to be my big 5 tips to improve yourself to an advanced player within Rogue Company. If you've got the basic tips down, you want to be focusing on these to propel yourself even forward. I have a plan in the future to do 5 pro tips for Rogue Company players, actually asking pros themselves within the game exactly what they think the biggest tips for people to learn are to take that next step even further. If you want to see that video, make sure you drop a like and let me know in the comments though. For now though guys, that will take us, as I said, to the end of the video, and if you did enjoy, make sure you drop that like and subscribe to the channel. You can also come follow me on twitch.tv/RADTHARGAMING to see me put these tips in action. All the links you're going to need for all my channels are linked in the description below. For now though, I do hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll catch you in the next video.